ring the bell, or should I?
My tape is on. Now you can.
This meeting is being held in conformance with the Sunshine Law. Notice of time, date, and place has been furnished to the Bergen Record and the Ridgewood News. Notice has also been posted on the bulletin board of the Administration Building. Would the clerk kindly take the roll?
Mayor Giordano.
Here.
Mr. Brennick.
Here.
Ms. Saracola. Here. Mr. Marnello.
Here.
Mr. Raimondo.
Here.
Mr. Ritchie.
Here.
Mrs. Weber. Here.
Everyone kindly stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us have a moment of silence for our Waldwick veterans and all veterans across the country who have given the ultimate sacrifice so that we could assemble the way we are and keep us in a free nation. Would the clerk kindly do the prayer?
We thank you for everyone gathered here now. Thank you that you know each of us by name and have caused us to walk with you. We say that we are dependent on you and our trust is in you completely. As we surrender ourselves in adoration, we ask that you would come by your Holy Spirit and inspire our hearts today. Come fill our lives with your love, fill our conversations with your grace and truth, fill this meeting with your presence. We ask this for your glory and praise. Amen.
Amen. Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you all for being here tonight. Under our committees, under my report, first of all, I'd like to thank Kelly and Tatiana and the council for taking part in our Christmas tree lighting ceremony that took place on last Friday. It was a great success. We're still hearing raves about how everybody likes where it is and how everything was done. Hopefully every year we'll do it much better. Yesterday, Tatiana and Kelly went to Van Thorn Park and decorated our Christmas tree that we get every year from the county. After we decorate the tree, there's a contest, and then after they announce the winner, we have our DPW go down and pick the tree up, and we bring it here into Waldwick and we plant it. The theme of this year's tree is trains. When you see your new calendar for 2025, you'll notice that the cover is the train station, and it's also the train tower. Andrea Maschreda, who designed the original picture for our 75th anniversary, has made it for us, so that'll be the theme for the calendar for 2025, and since it's the theme, we made it so that the whole theme for this year will be trains, even at Van Thorn Park. Also, I'd like to thank the Lions Club and the fire department for going around for Santa Claus this year. We've heard a lot of people saying nice things about it's a tradition that everyone likes, and some people were not happy that they were woken up early, but it's Christmas. Grin and bear it. And that's all I have to report. Financial Administrative Committee, Mr. Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. No report for me this evening. I'll save my comments for the ordinance.
Thank you. Fire and Police Protection Committee, Mr. Brennick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of social events. You kind of stole my thunder there with your opening line, but we were very happy to support the town in the tree lighting ceremony. Santa was around on the fire truck last week, and again, most people liked it. A few. And lastly, we have Operation Santa, which is a project that the fire department does annually. It's underway. The firehouse is opened right now and tomorrow night for items to be dropped off if necessary. Operation Santa is on many different websites, and although I could go into detail about it, well, this time of year, there's elves all over the place, and I don't want people listening to things that perhaps they shouldn't listen to. So if you're interested, by all means, get on the website, and the town website, I believe, supports it. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Public Safety Committee, Ms. Saracola.
Thank you, Mayor. The WALVAC responded to 48 calls in November, 2 being mutual aid. Ashley Statuto responded to the most calls at 24. April Trainer responded to the second most calls at 19. And Adrian Kamayagwa in third at 14 calls. The majority of runs were on Saturdays and Sundays. A unit arrived on scene in under 5 minutes for 75% of all calls in November. WALVAC also provided standby assistance to Ramsey Vac at the Don Bosco playoff game on 11/22. For Waldeck Access for All, I attended their meeting last night, and the current chair, Deb Delavecchia, was elected to serve as the chair for next year. We discussed budgets and plans for next year. They're also seeking a new intern, as their prior intern did a fantastic job but is getting ready for college and future plans. If anyone knows of anyone that would be interested, please reach out to me. They also expressed interest in being involved in the Borough Park Rehabilitation Project to try to make the park ADA accessible during the design phase. And additionally, they are attempting to work with the Board of Ed to ensure that parking lots are ADA accessible. Thank you.
Thank you. In January, we're going to probably have a meeting with the ambulance corps about the Bristol.
Okay.
So once we set up that date, we'll see how your schedule is, and we'll work it out.
Okay.
Okay? You're welcome. Recreation and Health Committee, Mr. Martinello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For tonight, just a few reminders on winter sports registration for wrestling and basketball will be still ongoing. I'm sure they're still willing to take more children into the programs. Baseball will be opening their spring registration for the holidays, and they're excited for the town to see the new improvements down at the park for opening day in April. More to come there. Also a reminder of the Mayor's 4th annual house decorating contest. The deadline to register is 2 p.m. on the 13th, so get your registrations in. The judging will be done on December 17th. Reminder that our menorah lighting is on December 22nd at 4 p.m. in front of the Waldeck Library. There'll be songs, sweet treats, and prayers. Also, the American Legion is hosting a Toys for Tots through December 13th. Please consider donating a new unwrapped toy. Drop it off at the American Legion for those less fortunate than us during this holiday season. On the Health Committee, during November, COVID and flu rates continue to be low. There is an increase in RSV rates in hospitals. Child Health Clinic still is on the 3rd Wednesday of every month, and we saw one child in November. I just have one note, 4:30.
Is the menorah light?
Menorah light, 4:30, excuse me. During November, 8 retail establishments were inspected by the health department. 1 complaint was reviewed. And our vital stats, we had 3 marriage applications, 5 marriage licenses applied for, 5 deaths, and 2 births. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Public Works Committee, Mr. Raimondo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple items. New hydrant was placed on Lockwood Ave to address the groundwater issue that's been replaced, put in place, in addition to what's currently there to help with the situation. They had a sanitary sewer clog on East Prospect on Sunday. The DPW resolved that Sunday morning and took care of that. Staging work is being completed to prep for the water leak on the corner of Wyckoff and Crescent Ave, so we can resolve that issue. With the winter months being here, they want to avoid a slippery situation. Thank you to the DPW for cleaning and setup for the park for the Christmas tree lighting. And I'd also like to thank Tatiana and Kelly for such a beautiful program last Friday and everyone that attended. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Building and Grounds Committee, Ms. Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have much of a report this evening. I just wanted to really thank everyone on the mayor and council here for that wonderful tree lighting, especially Tatiana and Kelly. They do such a great job working to get that up to speed, and the residents really enjoyed it. We had a great turnout, even though it was chilly. A lot of people came, and I really appreciated that. We had a good time. That's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for getting us the horse. Anybody needs the horse, let her know. Our administrator, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quick, I also want to just thank Kelly and Tatiana for a great event, and all the staff and the mayor and council. It was a really nice night. I know my kids had a blast, and they love seeing the Grinch, so thank you to the PD also. For the other part of my report, I think in a few minutes, we're going to have a presentation from the Land Conservancy of New Jersey on our recently drafted open space and recreation plan.
Thank you. Our Borough Clerk, Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would just like to thank the mayor and council for their support in the event for the Christmas tree lighting, as well as the DPW, Police Department, Wallback, or the Fire Department, and CERT, as well as our sponsors for this successful event. Tatiana, I do really love putting this together. It's actually one of the fun things we get to do, so we do look forward to it, and we'll look forward to doing it again next year. Just a reminder to sign up for Constant Contact, our new platform for the weekly community news and update, as well as our monthly newsletter. Nixle will continue to be used for PD for their emergency notifications only. And just happy holidays to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Borough Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing from my report. The ordinance is here, and then I have one item for closed session. No action will be taken after the closed session now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Consent resolutions and resolutions of the governing body. Oh, you want to go to Barbara first?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do the presentation first, if that's all right.
No problem.
So I'd like to introduce Barbara Heskins Davis from the Land Conservancy of New Jersey, who the past several months has been working on an update of open space and recreation plan for us. So tonight, we are going to have the first public session on this and hearing and presentation from Barbara. Thank you.
Good evening. So my name is Barbara Heskins Davis. I'm a licensed planner, and I work with the Land Conservancy of New Jersey. I worked with Steve in Verona, and I was really honored to be able to come to Waldwick to do your open space and recreation plan. As a quick reminder, the open space and recreation plan is being done to Green Acres guidelines. So Green Acres requires 2 public meetings. This is the first of the 2. The second will be in February at the Planning Board, where they'll consider it for adoption. Next slide. So why do you want to create an open space and recreation plan? Well, in Waldwick, it's really a good idea. This is your first open space and recreation plan. You've had an open space trust fund since 2004. Your voters approved it in 2003. The last time you accepted Green Acres funding was in 1976. You do have a series of parks in your municipality that your residents use. You could probably use additional open space. It's difficult to purchase land in Waldwick Borough, and it's expensive. The borough, with your open space and recreation plan and having an open space trust fund, would qualify for state funding. Go ahead. So I want to talk a little bit about the Green Acres program, and I'm going to bring it up a couple of times. And I'm doing that on purpose because I have the Borough Council here. Green Acres is the state realtor. So if the borough wants to acquire land for parks or recreation, if the Land Conservancy wants to acquire land, we all go through the Green Acres program to apply for state funding. As I mentioned, Waldwick has received 1 state grant back in 1976 for $39,600 to buy Brookview Park. You haven't received and haven't applied for Green Acres. We applied once, but then turned it down for Green Acres funding. The advantage of Green Acres funding is that it brings additional dollars, just a base advantage. Because you have an open space trust fund and because you'll have this open space and recreation plan, you'll qualify for an enhanced program through the state of New Jersey. So what that means is that you basically open an account with the state of New Jersey, so that if I, Mrs. Davis, want to sell my property to the municipality for open space, you negotiate with me, we agree on a price, you apply to the state for my property, and you're not in that program. It's a 60-page application. It's tied to my property. It's very cumbersome. And then if I decide not to sell you my property, you lose that money. Whereas, when you have an open space and recreation plan and you have an open space trust fund, if I change my mind, first of all, the application is the plan. So once the plan is complete, once you've adopted it, I'll work with Steve to submit it to the state. It's already been reviewed by Green Acres, so you already know that you qualify. And then the application is the plan. If you want to apply for my property, you would just do this as you would any other realty transaction. You would do an appraisal, a survey, an environmental assessment. You'd sign a contract with me. And if I changed my mind, it would be disappointing, but you wouldn't lose the money. You could apply the money to any other property within the municipality that meets the goals that are stated within your open space and recreation plan. And that's a big deal. And in addition, you qualify for more money if you have an open space and recreation plan. The plan is good for 10 years. You don't have to apply to the state. You don't have to do anything, but it gives you an option. And I think that's important as decision makers. Next slide. So we identified 4 goals for Waldwick Borough, and these all make sense. You want to be able to provide parks and recreational areas within 10 minutes of every resident. You want to offer a variety of recreational pursuits. You want to safeguard your landscape, and you can see this just as well as any other town. And you want to ensure your cultural heritage. I really got to charge that your calendar is going to have the train station on the cover. It's important. Go ahead. As I mentioned, your program started really in 1976 with the acceptance of the Green Acres funding. You applied, your voters approved an open space trust fund in 2003. You're one of the most prolific applicants to the Bergen County Open Space Program, and I really congratulate you. You've gotten 30 grants, almost $2 million through the county open space program. That is a remarkable achievement. Go ahead. And this just illustrates that. Your open space trust fund has collected just over $1.5 million. You bring in about $82,000 a year. Bergen County has awarded just under $2 million, and the state's awarded $39,600. Go ahead. You have 6 parks totaling 61 acres, and this is a list of your parks. I'm hired by the municipality. I like Waldwick. I grew up in Bergen County, not far from Waldwick Borough. I'm going to tell you your parks really could use some improvements, and this gives you those tools to be able to do that. Go ahead. So the Green Acres requires 2 sections. A why, do you want to preserve open space? And then what do we recommend? So the whys are what we've talked about. You want to encourage physical activity. Healthy living is a big component of Waldwick. You want to enhance your homeowner value, property values within the municipality. You want to improve air and water quality. You want to protect natural areas, and you want to continue to improve quality of life. Go ahead. Thank you. So what are your recommendations? You want to improve and expand your parks? You hired us. We're encouraging you to apply to the Green Acres program. You want to preserve historic places. You want to make sure your lands are kept healthy, and you want to connect people, and you want to expand parks. Go ahead. So we provide a series of recommendations. I really have to congratulate Waldwick Borough. I thought what you did this spring to purchase the former Wagner property was a really remarkable acquisition, and you can expand it. There are opportunities there. And it's a great property. It connects from one end to the other. It's accessible. It's right on the sidewalk. It's a beautiful piece of property. Go ahead. And then we provide in the plan very specific concepts about expanding existing recreational areas, whether it's the Wagner property, Brookview Park, or interestingly, PSE&G owns a lot of right-of-way within the municipality. I've worked with other towns where they've been able to utilize the ground above the PSE&G infrastructure for trails or pathways. In one instance, a community garden, which I would not recommend, but it's another option, especially if you don't want to acquire that land. Go ahead. And you want to connect parks to people. So one of the priorities in the state of New Jersey right now is the concept of overburdening communities and environmental justice. And we specifically included this in your open space and recreation plan because there's enhanced funding if you address overburdened communities. And Waldwick Borough does have a census tract that qualifies as an overburdened community. And we explain this in your open space and recreation plan. And that corner of the municipality is just beyond the 10-minute walk to any other park within the town. It doesn't have the same access to parks and recreation that other segments of your municipality does. If the borough were to acquire land within this segment, there would be enhanced funding through the state of New Jersey to help you with that. And then applying to the Green Acres program. So again, I'm going to bring this up a couple of times, and I'm here to answer your questions, and you should take advantage of that. So Green Acres, if you apply to Green Acres funding, it comes with strings, just like any other grant funding might occur. So you've acquired the former Wagner property. It was an expensive acquisition. You qualify for, with this plan, for a 50% grant to cover the cost of acquiring that property. It covers the acquisition cost and 50% of the soft cost used to acquire that piece of property. It's a reimbursement type of grant, so you can apply now. The application's due February 5th, and we would help you to make sure that you would get in. And then you could apply for reimbursement because it would be surprising if they awarded that much in your first go-around. So what comes with that? You'd have to update what's called a recreation open space inventory. So you have a recreation open space inventory. It's from 1989, and it includes all of your parks that you currently own. It does also include the rifle range, which we would recommend that you appeal to Green Acres to remove from your Rossi, because it's not really a park. It's just included within, I think it's Borough Park. And then you would add the Wagner property to it. So what happens when you put a property on your Rossi? When you put a property on your Rossi, it's restricted for any other use but parks and recreation. But you already have a Rossi, so you already do that. The Wagner property you purchased with open space dollars, so you already know that that property is going to be restricted. So, okay, so that's kind of a check mark. You already know that that property is going to be a park. What's the other string? Well, it has to be scheduled. So if I live in Randolph and I want to have my soccer team play at your new park, I could contact the town, and there are rules for that. You have to charge me a fee. It could be more than what you charge, your current residents. And it would have to be scheduled where your residents get first priority. So these things are not, unusual or unreasonable. It's just you have to be aware of it. The other thing that we like to make sure municipalities know is that when you put a property on a Rossi, especially the Wagner property, which is going to be new, is that if you have a structure on that property or if there's infrastructure on that property that's not parks and recreation or doesn't support outdoor recreation, don't put that part of the property on the Rossi. It just makes sense. Because if you have to improve that infrastructure or you're going to use that building for something other than outdoor recreation, it's inconsistent with Green Acres and they'll get upset. So that's your Green Acres grant. You want to preserve your historic places, next slide, and steward your public lands, next slide. So where are we? Well, we started this back in February. We had several site visits. I really want to commend Steve and Kelly. It's such a pleasure to work with your professional staff. We prepared multiple drafts of the report, which have been reviewed by your professionals, and we're here tonight to present the plan. The plan is on the website, which is great, so the public has the opportunity to review it. The planning board will review it and hopefully adopt it February 5th, which is great timing because the application to the state is due the same day. And as I mentioned, they've already reviewed the plan and we've addressed any comments that they have. So this evening, what I ask is that you ask me your questions, and hopefully I can answer them. Open it up to the public, so the public has the same opportunity to ask questions. If any changes need to be made to the plan based on what I've heard tonight, our office will quickly do that so that you can have a final report for your planning board. And with that, I thank you very much.
We thank you for being here and explain everything to us. Since Kelly and Steve walked around, why don't you start, you didn't walk around?
I didn't walk around. I've just worked with Barbara
Oh,
before.
okay.
Yeah, we took them around to all the different locations, all the different playgrounds and parks, just to identify so they could actually put their eyes on it and see what's going on. We talked a lot about some of our goals with updating some of the park areas and playgrounds around town. So it's kind of where this stems from, and we just want to set ourselves up to be able to apply for state funding if that's the direction we want to go in, to recoup some of the money that we've invested in open space. So basically, at this time, we'll just kind of pitch it to all of you. If you have any questions for Barbara or myself.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Thanks for the presentation, very nice. So if the borough were to take Green Acres money for, you mentioned the Wagner property a few times. So let's say the borough takes Green Acres money. What kind of restrictions does that put on resale of the property? If in a pinch, are we able to resell that property? Or are we prohibited now from selling that forever?
So my understanding is that you used open space funds to purchase that property. If you used...
Did we? We did not, no.
You did not,
We
okay.
did not.
So that's good. All right, so then your question has a lot of value. But I'm going to answer it two ways. So just to finish my thought. If you used open space funds, you could not resell it, okay? You used capital dollars to purchase the Wagner property. Since you used capital dollars, there's no restrictions on the future use of that property. So you could keep it, you could subdivide it, you could sell all of it, but my understanding is the intention was to purchase it for open space. But since you purchased it with capital dollars right now, no restrictions. Just to give you all the options, you could choose right now to sit tight, right? You've purchased the Wagner property, it was a big investment. You could choose to sit tight, not apply to Green Acres this year, and give yourself the time to properly plan for that property. Have your planner look at it, have your engineer look at it, your recreation folks, and make a decision that works for the municipality. And if you choose to restrict all of it or part of it for a park, you could apply next year. Right now, it looks like Green Acres is going to have funding every year. If that changes, I'll let Steve know. But it does give you some leeway, and you would apply for reimbursement funding. Does that answer?
Yeah, so if we take Green Acres money for the park, for any improvements, we're still able to sell that
No.
property? No, so it does restrict our ability to sell. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Yes?
Thank you again for the presentation. Just follow up on your one question. You talked about when we have parks that are in the Rossi, once you're in there, they're basically open for use from folks from other towns and whatnot, if they want to use our soccer field or whatnot. Is that only if we take Green Acres funding, or as soon as any of those properties are on that list, they're all available for outside town use?
All available because you accepted Green Acres funding in '76. So the parks that you have listed on your Rossi are essentially open to all residents of the state of New Jersey. I'm going to guess, since that you've had a Rossi since 1989, and it didn't come up as an issue when I was doing your plan, that it's not currently an issue in Waldwick.
And if we take more money, nothing changes. We just add the Wagner property to that list.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else?
Thank you very much for your time. Is there a length of time that we would have to take Green Acres money for, say, like the Wagner property?
That's
If we
a really-
decided to do it in like 4 years? Or
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been doing this, so I'm at the Land Conservancy 25 years, and I served as chair of my open space committee for probably 5 years before that, so I've been doing this for a while. And I have had towns go back and seek reimbursement funding several years later. So my only caution is that, they have the money now, so if you want the money, you should think about that. But I do very much understand the thoughtfulness that you're going to take in order to decide how that property is going to best be used.
Because there are 2 structures
Yes.
on that location, so we would have to remove them from the overall acreage.
Only if you plan on using them for something other than outdoor recreation.
Right.
So if you plan on using them to support outdoor recreation, like I think there's a barn and a house, right?
Yeah.
So if the barn is going to store equipment for managing the field, that can be kept on the site. If the house is going to, let's say, be a community center, and that's going to be indoor recreation, you should talk to the state, about whether to have that on or off. You should also, I can't emphasize enough to have your engineer look at that property, just in case there's any water infrastructure or sewer infrastructure or any old easements. You want to make sure that those are not listed on your Rossi.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Now, if we,
Sorry, just follow up on that. Borough ordinances, do they override any open space restrictions? For example, one of our parks, we only allow children under 12 to play on there. Would that
That's fine.
borough ordinance override any open requirements from the state?
I can't think of a borough ordinance, unless that's a really good question. It really depends on the ordinance.
Like even like times of use, sun up to
No,
sundown?
you can dictate the use of your park. The only requirement that Green Acres has is that in your list of uses, that you allow for the scheduling of people from outside the community. They can pay more, but they can be, second to your own residents. But if an outside community member wants to use your park on an organized basis, it just has to be allowed and scheduled. And I'm going to say that since you've already accepted Green Acres funds, I'm sure that that's already part of your, litany of ordinances.
Yeah, when we rent, when someone applies to use our borough park, and you're not a resident, there's a fee for them, and they have to present us with insurance. It'll be the same thing with everything else that we're going to be doing.
Exactly.
Now, the house that's on that property right now, which is a rental, say we leave it that way as a rental, we just take that off the Rossi,
Yes.
and then we could leave it as long as we want that way, and if we decide now to get rid of the home and add that to the development, we just let the state know, and then we just put that back on the Rossi. Am I correct?
Yeah, you can.
What we do is we do a subdivision.
Right.
We have to do a subdivision, carve those pieces out
Right,
with different lot numbers.
right.
So not to correct your attorney, I'm really sorry, is that the Rossi, interestingly enough, it doesn't have to be a formal subdivision. If you're going to have one lot and a portion of it's going to be off the Rossi, they'll actually accept a line on a map. You know, I agree with your attorney. The cleanest thing is to, you know, have a different lot, then there's no question. The other thing for your attorney is that the property, if you go to put it on your Rossi, has to have a deed restriction.
Right.
So there's language from the state that your attorney then would file with the county clerk, so any title search, it would come up.
Anyone else from the council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Quick question. With regards to the structures that are on the property, if we subdivide it and put those as separate entities, does that prorate the actual dollars that are available based on the overall acreage?
Yes.
Or-
Yes, that's a good question. So if you paid $500,000 for the property and the house is worth $100,000, that may affect it. That's really a Green Acres question. I'm just going to confirm with our land preservation director at work about that, and I'll email Steve tomorrow with a more robust answer. My gut is yes, but I just would feel better if I asked her.
Somebody's wearing that jacket. Anyone else from the council? If not, anybody from the public would like to come up and just state your name, and you could ask any questions you want about this topic. If not, we thank you. Oh.
Yes, hi, John Vervoort from Waldwick. Ma'am, you mentioned, you recommended something about the pistol range? What were you talking about? I didn't understand that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. So the pistol range is currently part of the same lot as Borough Park, correct? It's currently part of the same lot as Borough Park, and the entire lot for Borough Park is included on this recreation open space inventory. And the pistol range isn't a recreational use. It's used as a pistol range. It's not outdoor recreation. So my recommendation is that the municipality should apply to Green Acres to have that removed from the Rossi.
You mean get rid of the pistol range?
No.
Just take it off.
It's just on the piece of paper. Sorry. Thank you.
John, we have a list of all our properties that are part of this, and that's in it. What we're going to do is we're going to remove it.
Okay.
But you could still stay there. Anyone else? If not, I thank you very much for coming here and explaining everything to us, and have a very happy holiday. Now, can we do consent resolutions?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, consent resolutions and resolutions of the governing body.
Be it resolved that the following resolutions herewith listed by consent, having been considered by the governing body of the Borough of Waldwick, are hereby passed and approved. 2024-303, approval of consent. 2024-304, approval of minutes, regular and closed session meetings, November 26, 2024. 2024-305, approval of support for a constitutional amendment to increase the veteran property tax deduction from $250 to $2,500 over the course of 4 years. 2024-306, authorize partial release of developers agreement for DNR Waldwick LLC, the Waldwick Station. 2024-307, authorize emergency resolution NJSA 48:4-46. 2024-308, Award a fair and open contract to Alpine Painting and Sandblasting Contractors for ground storage tanks 1 and 2 improvements in the amount of $525,950. 2024-309, authorize special council meeting for Monday, December 23rd. 2024-310, authorize special budget meetings, various. 2024-311, cancellation of appropriated reserve balance in current fund. 2024-312, approval of budget appropriation transfers. 2024-313, payment of vouchers. And in addition for tonight is the 2024-315 to authorize an amendment to Resolution 2024-240, which is the cancellation and refund of taxes for Block 73.07, Lot 5.
Do I have a motion and a second to accept? Motion by Mark, second by Michelle. Anyone on the council have any questions about this? Yes.
Just to touch on 301. 301's Waldwick Station. When they build a development like that, they post a developer's agreement that gets recorded with the county. The reason this is a portion, obviously that development down there is fully rented out, it's stabilized. They're probably, they've asked for a release of the developer's agreement, but there's a continuing obligation for the maintenance of the stormwater system that's on site. That's why it's only a partial release.
Anyone else? Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Brennick?
Yes.
Ms. Saracolo?
Yes.
Mr. Marnello?
Yes.
Mr. Raimondo?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Weber?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about ordinance number 2024-33. Mr. Attorney, I'm going to be recusing myself from this.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as the council knows, this is the ordinance, this is the public hearing on the ordinance for the redevelopment plan. You have in front of you, or you should have in front of you, the December 4th letter from the Planning Board Council in regards to their review of the redevelopment plan. I just want to touch on some comments that they made, and then we have the presentation by the potential redeveloper to address some concerns that were brought up at those meetings, as well as questions that the council may have. So in response to in looking at the letter, the main point is that the planning board did find that this redevelopment plan is consistent with the master plan. That's the main part of their review, as to determine whether there's consistency with the borough's master plan. And as it says on page 1 going into page 2, that they did find this consistency. They noted that there was a large contingency of the public there at the first meeting, more public than they've ever seen at any meeting. They did not get to speak that night, but they were told they could speak at a later meeting, but I guess it didn't happen because the letter was pre-drafted by the third meeting. But going through, the one thing I note in the letter is the board apparently seemed to be split and divided as to the comments. There's no consensus of board members. It doesn't say that there was a consensus of board members for certain comments, but they do go through and say that certain board members had questions. One of the big comments was about the timing of things and why the Rite Aid property was not included. And, as requested, I went to the planning board meeting to try and address this comment, but the board did not want to hear from me in regards to that. But just to reiterate and to talk about that comment, this process started in 2022. We went out with the area in need of redevelopment for the parcels by the train station. We then included these parcels, portion of which is being discussed tonight. RFP, it was decided at the time the council would seek RFPs for potential redevelopment projects. One project came in that encompassed the entirety of all those sites, but there was a misunderstanding with the entity that submitted that. They wanted the borough to acquire all those properties and the borough to sell all the properties to the developer, so that was rejected as not being a viable option. There's been a couple, this being one, and then another one next door. We have not received any proposals for the Rite Aid property, so we can't discuss that. We can't include that. It's, there's just nothing on the books yet for a proposal for there. That's why there was no proposal for the Rite Aid property before the planning board, or we could start with that project. You'll hear So going through, they talk about the parking. That's going to be a site plan issue, but you're going to hear from the redeveloper potentially about parking in the area and the number of spaces required. One of the board members, I guess, they're talking about the height and the 4 stories and the 50 feet tall. I'm sure that the proposed developer in his presentation will discuss about that. I do know that there might have been confusion as to the fact that that 50-foot height is not the entirety of the whole project. It's literally the corner of Harrison and Prospect, but I'm sure that'll be, discussed by the potential redeveloper. Talked about the timing and why the Rite Aid property wasn't first. The last 2 paragraphs talk about, things that are really outside the scope of what the redevelopment plan would do. The second to last paragraph of the comments talk about unusual level of personal interest in a redevelopment project by members of the governing body. I watched and listened to all 3 meetings. That was not brought up in a public meeting. I don't know where that came from. Same with the next about the bona fides of the redeveloper. That was not brought up at the public meeting, so I don't know where that came from either. But the reality is it's not really relevant, and even though it's not relevant, I'm sure the redeveloper is going to talk about his bona fides to develop this parcel and his qualifications and all the projects he's done throughout the state to make this council comfortable that he can pull this off. So with that said, I've gone through the letter. Since, they can be discussed, but what I would recommend is we hear from the potential redeveloper, present the plans to the public so that the public can be informed when they come up for the public comment portion. And then once we hear from them, if the council has any questions from the redeveloper, they can ask them, potential redeveloper, they can ask them, and then we can open it up to the public. So there's no problem with that. I ask council if he wants to approach and introduce this plan, what the concept is. I don't know where it is. No, that was in the open space there. Looks like he's going like that. I know.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Bruce Whitaker from the firm of McDonald & Whitaker. I've had the good fortune of appearing before the Borough of Waldwick, your land use boards, for many years. I've been involved with many of the projects that have come to fruition throughout the town, including your downtown, many of the shopping centers, some of your housing projects, as well as your subdivision projects. And I'm pleased to introduce you tonight to a project that we are excited for, and that's the Harrison Avenue Redevelopment LLC applicant. The property, as you know, is Block 107, lots 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. That's referred to in the planner's report as the plan area. You're familiar with the area. It fronts on 3 streets and has a mix of residential, commercial, and vacant properties. We've had the benefit of looking at your planner's report, Mr. Greigel, who's been your planner for many years and is the author and developer of the various master plans that have been promulgated to the township over the years. Before him, it was Richard Price, as I recall, his other partner. In any event, what he found is that the plan that is being proposed supports the central business district. It will take advantage of transit-oriented housing, which is a very important statewide kind of concept for housing these days. It will provide some new commercial space. It's going to provide, importantly, different and varied types of housing, which again is something that is a guideline that the state has out there these days. And then most importantly, it's going to help address the borough's affordable housing obligations as we approach the 4th round of affordable housing, which is upon us at this time. Our client has assembled a team of well-respected professionals for the implementation of a redevelopment plan for this property. I take the opportunity tonight to give you a very brief overview of the plan itself, which consists of 22 apartments and 21 townhouses. It would be a rental development, and therefore there would be a 15% set aside for affordable housing, and the affordable housing requirements that are promulgated in the fourth round would be met by this developer. Most importantly, the developer has done many, many projects in the past, and the developer is not only an owner, but also an operator. So from the standpoint of accountability, and you'll hear from the developer shortly, the accountability is there. Before I introduce, though, the developer, I'd like to take you through the project itself. And on that basis, we have Robert Zampelin, who is a very well-known architect, and he's been involved with the design of many different types of housing styles. I've worked with him for probably over 30 years. He's worked on mansions in Saddle River and Alpine, luxury and affordable housing, the whole gambit of housing, and he has created very upscale designs for various properties in Bergen County, and I think when you see what is being proposed tonight, that this is a very upscale type of project. He's going to introduce and describe his background to you, and then he's going to give you an overview of what's being proposed, which fits within the redevelopment plan as promulgated in Mr. Geigel's report. As I stated, the municipality also needs to be concerned about the prospective developer. And in this instance, we have Richard Radici. He's the principal of Harrison Avenue Redevelopment. I know there was a concern raised in the letter that came from the planning board attorney. Just a little background, he's been in a line of construction work like this for over 35 years. I have a booklet we're going to pass out tonight to show you the type of work that he and his company, DMR Construction, which is here in Waldwick for many years. And he is the owner of that also. And he is not only in charge of development and in engineering and construction, but also has had the good fortune of retaining developments and running them and operating them. He's not only done private developments, and this is a very important thing to note for those concerned about that paragraph at the end of the letter pertaining to who is the developer. Mr. Radici and his companies has been certified by the states of New Jersey and New York to do state projects. That's a very hard test to pass. And he's done it, and he's done it with great success, not only for his company, but for the projects that you'll hear about tonight that he's done on behalf of the state of New Jersey. So with that as an overview of the application, unless there's any preliminary comments or questions of me, I would turn it over to Mr. Zampelin to walk you through the project. Thank you. Bob?
Thank you, Bruce. Bruce gave me a great build-up. My name is Bob Zampelin. I've been a licensed architect since 1985. In preparing for tonight, I just realized that next year it's our 40th year of private practice. So whenever I think about that, time just flies by. You know, I'm in my late 60s. It's crazy. But the office has been located in Westwood, New Jersey for 37 years, 3 years when we first started out in Emerson. Obviously, we've done lots of townhome projects and apartment building projects. Some of the townhome projects that we've done are Saddle River Grand and Saddle River on Chestnut Ridge Road. We did the Enclave in Montvale on Lake Street. Those are projects from 10, 15 years ago. We've done the Bel Air at Alpine Country Club, and we're currently finishing up the Woodlands townhouse project over at the Frick Estates in Demarest, and we've been designing for a number of years, unfortunately, it's called the Farm at the Frick Estates in Alpine, but it's Alpine, so everything takes a number of years in Alpine. So those are some of the projects that we've worked on, and Bruce said we also do, obviously many residential homes in the area, and we've done, I'm thinking about tonight, we also did, it was called Pascack Community Bank at the time. We did that bank building. It's on Crescent and I think it's Wyckoff Avenue. I think now it's a Provident Bank. But that was when Pascack was a small community bank. So that's just some of our experience over the past 40 years. So with that being said, if that's okay, I have 3 boards that we put together, and which I feel sorry, I'm trying the boards as I'm talking about them, but I have a board from Conklin Associates that we mounted. It's his conceptual site plan, and then we have our 2 3D renderings and the illustrations for the different type of building typologies that we're looking to develop. The first board that I'll talk about is our townhome style home. It's a 3D rendering of the townhouses. And as Bruce said, there's 21 townhouses that we're proposing on the development. 13 townhouses will be located on the Harrison Avenue street, which this rendering shows a view looking kind of south on Harrison, where you see the mixed-use residential and retail building in the background going towards West Prospect, and Frederick Street would be on the left-hand side of the rendering. And what we've done is we've designed the townhomes in a traditional turn-of-the-century style. It's an all-brick facade. Would be precast detailing both at the window heads and the sills, as well as obviously the front doors and precast lintels over the garage doors. The windows will be all double-hung windows for the traditional type of windows at that time. At that time, didn't have casement windows in terms of design. The windows will all have light cuts in terms of the design, so it's very traditional. And then going to T-Bar's site plan from Conklin Associates, the 13 townhomes on Harrison Avenue all have a stepping pattern in terms of where T-Bar is. It's not one continuous facade. Every 2 townhomes stagger approximately 3 to 4 to 5 feet. So you have a little bit of a rhythm in terms of the facades. And there might be some changes in elevation in terms of topography, so townhomes will step. And in addition to that, when we look at the rendering, we've also created different types of cantilevered box bay windows, angle bays, box bays, and some units will have no bays, just to kind of vary the facades of the townhomes, so there's a little bit of differentiation. In addition to that, there'll be in a traditional style of architecture, we'll have a heavy cornice molding. We'll want it to have the rooftop parapet line, just to give it some nice capping detail to the townhomes. And then moving to the second rendering that we have, this rendering would be a view as you're standing on, here's Harrison Street and West Prospect. So you're kind of looking to the west, which would be towards the Rite Aid property. We believe that's the barbershop salon on the right-hand side going in front of the Turnpike. Now, Bruce said that we have 22 apartments. There's 21 apartments that we're proposing in the upper stories of the residential component of the building, and there's 1 pre-existing apartment, one bedroom apartment in the barbershop salon, so hence it's 22. The preliminary unit mix that we're looking for in terms of the apartment style, there'll be 8 one-bedroom apartments. It's 7 in the new building that's being proposed, and then 1 that's pre-existing. There's 12 two-bedroom apartments and 2 3-bedroom apartments for a total of 22 using the existing building, proposed building. And again, everybody sees some of the new developments that are happening where, when you have a big building complex, they model with different textures and materials and colors to try to create variations. But when you really look at some older buildings in a historical context, it's just classic, clean architectural line. It's all high-quality materials, all brickwork, precast arches. There's a colonnade that's created at the retail level where the sidewalk from West Harrison will continue underneath the building and continue by the retail area, which will be a nice aesthetic. There's lots of cornice molding that we have both at the rooftop level on the 4th floor, as well as some detailing where the building steps back. I know there was a conversation about the building height. The cornice molding that we have at the top of the building is approximately 4 feet tall, so it's a significant amount of detailing. Sure, you could squish the building down and get those contemporary buildings that have small bands, but in a historical building, there's room for archways and some detail. Unfortunately, that dwarfs things a little bit taller. Then again, at the turn of the century, there were no zoning ordinances. In fact, that was pretty much it that they wanted to. So that gives the look and style of the building. So, and that's kind of the reason.
So as far as the 50-foot is concerned, where is that basically located? Is it over the entire site or just in one portion of the site?
It's one portion, because what we're looking to do is the ground floor retail level has a 14-foot high finished ceiling height, and that's in order to get emergency access vehicles into the back of the property. But it gives it a nice high colonnade in terms of the look, that open airiness kind of feel to the retail component. Then we have the second floor residential wing, which lines up at the same plane as the colonnade below. Then the building steps back. We're looking at approximately 5 to 8 feet or so, and the building pushes in to the upper 2 floors. And we're still working, subject to moving forward with the rest of the design. Obviously, we're looking to obviously keep the tallest section of the building right at the intersection of Harrison Avenue and West Prospect. So there's like a kind of like a cascading effect to the building.
In connection with the the stories that we have on this building,
Right.
in many of these projects that we see in the last few years, we see a 3- and 4-story project for housing, in which we've got flat facades and we've got a very long vertical without any type of architectural elements or aesthetics. You've already stated that you stepped it back. I'd just like you to walk us through what the step back is and the purpose behind that.
Well, the step back is obviously, Bruce, so that it's not just one vertical plane going up, 50 feet. So it would be essentially a 25-foot tall building and between 5 and 8 feet back another 25-foot tall building. So, the sheer perspective, obviously at a far distance, you'll be to 50 feet, but as you get closer up, the perspective works in your advantage where the building recedes a little bit, and then if we can actually work the back half of the building closer to the right, push it back a little bit more, you can play with all those changes in elevation.
So by virtue of what we're proposing here, we're not maximizing the footprint by doing a vertical wall 4 stories up.
No, and we had other studies that we did that wasn't well received, so we didn't bother pursuing those.
So it'd be correct to say that we've selected aesthetics here over maximizing the square footage of the building itself.
Right. We had other elements that went all the way up on other iterations.
Looking at the Conklin Associates plan on board number 1 right there, just point out and do the count of where the townhouses are located. For the board members and the members of the public, some of them are internal, correct?
Exactly. So the 13 townhomes on Harrison Avenue, then we have our 3 townhomes on Frederick Street. So we have the 13 on Harrison, 3 on Frederick, and 5 of them are actually on the interior of the site, which is really only seen from the parking lot from the right end.
And all of these townhouses will have their own garage, correct?
Yes, so the 1-car garage, all the townhouses are, conceptually designed as 2-bedroom townhouses. So T-Bar has it with a 1-car garage with 1 car outside. So according to T-Bar's analysis, we complied with all the parking requirements. His schedule shows 85.6 required and 87 is proposed on the property.
And the parking that's promulgated here, you've done a number of these type of projects, which is more of a transient because of the proximity to public transportation, that this type of parking that's being proposed, in your opinion, is sufficient for the type of use of these buildings?
Correct. 1.5 is more than sufficient in today's environment.
Okay, so I've had the question asked of me before in making presentations in town about the affordable housing element. And they describe it somewhat as an elephant in the room. We know we have to comply with it, and there are certain requirements and guidelines that affordable housing has, including bedroom count. So can you just walk us through what the affordable housing guidelines will be?
So it's 20, 20, and 40, and then you can pick the other 20%. So it's 20% ones, 20% threes, and 40% twos, and then you pick whichever other iteration you want for the balance of 100%. So it's kind of like, but you have to hit those certain minimums. You have to have at least 1 3 and 1 3 and 1 1.
So the question being many times is, well, why a 3-bedroom in a facility like this is basically required for the affordable, correct?
Correct.
We're not creating a series of 3-bedrooms.
No. Right now we have 2, but 2 is a TBD, depending on the final layout of the massing.
Correct to say, though, that as far as the amount of affordable housing and the guidelines and the certain building requirements for the interior of the units, what we're proposing here can meet all of those types of guidelines.
Absolutely.
I No, one other, the streetscape itself, what are we proposing there?
Well, obviously the streetscape for the town ordinances will have these stamps or patterned concrete or pavers. I know there's street lights that are part of the whole streetscape, which obviously is not in the rendering, but, obviously, should we move to the next step, we'll get more detailed renderings that show whatever type of shade trees are required in the right-of-way, sidewalk pattern, and the lighting schedule.
You have the ability to look at Mr. Greigel's report and the specifications, the standards, bulk standards as they call it, for this piece of property. Is it correct to say that what we've got here on these boards and what Conklin Associates has prepared as far as a conceptual site plan, that it meets all the requirements within that report and that proposal?
Right, I focused on the aesthetics a lot, and I really honestly feel like I will meet all those requirements.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Yeah, you can either ask questions now or listen here from Mr. Radici first and then ask questions all at once.
Whatever you like.
Should we hear from Mr. Radici?
I'd probably hear it, that way it's not piecemeal, yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Radici. Can you use the microphone? Mr. Radici, just introduce yourself to the board and tell them who you are and what's your business.
Okay, my name is Richard Radici. I'm president of DMR Construction Services. We're located at 160 Hopper Avenue, across the street from the tennis court. We've been there since 2007, almost 17 years now, and we love being here. It's a great town. Unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to come in front of the board, but we're looking forward to trying to get something accomplished in that regard tonight.
And what does DMR Construction do?
DMR, we predominantly started out as a public works contractor. I did personally a lot of major infrastructure work throughout New York City, and we gravitated to doing similar work in New Jersey, public work. So our biggest clients are Port Authority, New Jersey Transit, Metro North, and many of the municipalities throughout New Jersey. We've, in the last 10 years, have done about $100 million worth of work at the Hoboken train station, doing everything from repairing that train wreck that occurred many years ago when that signalman fell asleep, to rebuilding the immigration building with a $2 million historic facade replication, and we actually put a substation inside of it. So they maintain the historic look of the station and some of the historic buildings, and at the same time made a utility out of it. From Sandy, the objective is in New Jersey to raise the grid up out of the ground and put it overhead, and that's been a bulk of the work that we've been doing down at the Hoboken station.
Now, you're not only a principal of DMR Construction, but also you're the principal of the Harrison Redevelopment, Harrison Avenue Redevelopment LLC, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm the president of Harrison Street Redevelopment. About 10 or 15 years ago, we started doing a lot of vertical development work, and I'm a licensed professional engineer as well in New York and New Jersey. Years ago, I used to do a lot of presentations to the board, but since, I don't know, it must be the early 90s or something, we just gravitated more just specializing in construction. And we've owned and purchased and bought and developed many properties, a lot of them, most of them in New Jersey, and we have an office in South Florida as well, and we've done some very high-end homes down there and high-end townhouses on the ocean, and we're very familiar with the entitlement process, the land development process, the acquisition, feasibility analysis. I mean, we kind of a full-service company. We have probably 80 people working for us, between in the office, about 20 at our Waldwick office, and another 40 or 50 out in the field. Another thing, we self-perform a lot of our work, so we're not just a contractor that subs everything out. We own a ton of equipment, and we self-perform most of our site work, and we do a lot of the civil trades, concrete, formwork, more in the public work we self-perform a lot, and the private stuff we tend to just do most of the site.
And you also have the occasion to be not only the developer, but also as an owner-operator of a rental facility after it's completed?
Yeah, we have a few facilities now that we rent and we own, and this is going to be, you know, a staple project in town because, you know, it's here, it's our home base, and, you know, we're really kind of excited to be building this project in our town, and if there's anything, ever anything wrong, you know where to find me. I'm right down the street. I'm always there in the office pretty much 40, 50 hours a week, so, you know, there's never any lack of communication in that regard. We'll always be there to address any of your concerns.
I've mentioned to you, to the board, to the council this evening, that besides being the private developer building private, and you've mentioned in private developments, that you've mentioned that you started out doing state work both in New York and New Jersey. So you've got to be certified and qualified to get those type of projects and become a developer of those projects, correct?
Yeah, no, the bonding work has been our strength for many years. We probably have, I don't know, close to $300 million in bonding capacity. That's pretty much been the backbone of the company. And but we've equally spread out. It's probably about 50-50 in the work that we do private and public.
So we passed out a brochure this evening of the DMR company and some of the work that they've done, right? Just very briefly, if you would, just walk us through what that shows.
Sure. Well, this first cover page is a project we just finished, you know, probably less than a year ago. It's in West New York on the corner of Bergen Line Avenue and 49th Street. It's a 10-story building. It's 100 units. You know, it's a unique product. We had a particular design, just to let you know, from an architect. I don't want to say any names, that we weren't happy with, and we basically redid the entire facade and redid the layouts. He had like 15 different window sizes, which is not economical, and just made the project very ineffective, and so we value engineered it. We're just good at that. I mean, I'm an engineer. I got a bunch of architects that work for me. We have other engineers, mechanical guys, and civil guys. So we're familiar with the process, from start to finish. As we glance through here, Afton Village. This is a townhouse project that we did in Florham Park. High-end stuff. These are all over $1 million. These houses. They had elevators and. We just finished this about 2 years ago. Similar project. This other one, Gulfstream Views. This is right on the ocean in a town called Briny Breezes. It's about 3 miles north of Delray. It's on the water. This is all auger cast piles, concrete construction, 180 mile an hour wind resistant structures. A lot more expensive building townhouses in Florida than it is in New Jersey with the different restrictions that you have. But anyway, that was a good project. We did a bunch of high-end homes. Here's to show a few. These were just finished a couple years ago. This is Eldon Street in Saddle River. Then you have Kenwood. This was a very special home with an indoor pool that we finished. And then you have Old Mill. This is Woodcliff Lake. Finished this not too long ago. The station. This is a project that we did design development on 51st Street. This is the Osceola. This is a property that we own in Florida. We're currently getting approvals for this building. The Osceola, that's going to be 22 units. It's 2 blocks south of Atlantic Avenue, which is a pretty famous avenue, and we're in the process of getting that approved. And similar to 4th Street, we own this property in Boynton, and we're getting approvals for 153 units down there as well.
So with that said, and showing us this, you've had the opportunity to put this team together. We have reviewed the redevelopment aspects. We reviewed Mr. Greigel's report, his requirements as far as bulk standards are concerned. You obviously have been working with Mr. Zamplin and his staff in creating what we have here on the board this evening. You're confident this can be built out this way, and you're confident in the success of the project?
Yeah, no, it's a great project. I think it's perfect for that area. That's the kind of need for redevelopment, and I don't know, it's relatively simple build, and it's not a problem. It's a great project. We're really excited to build it, to be honest with you. It's right up our alley,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions?
See, I would say open it up to the council now for any questions from the potential redeveloper, and then any comments the council has, and then we can open it up to the public to hear from the public before the consideration of the ordinance.
Yeah, can I just ask a quick question? Thanks for that presentation. I think it looks beautiful. We've heard a lot from some council members from the planning board about the height. Just what's the probability that this moves forward, that you get financing if this gets rejected and we push it down to a 2/1, 3-story building?
Well, the project is not going to be feasible because you just don't have the economics, just are not going to work. But they were stretched out at the economics as they are right now. And I looked at the proposed redevelopment plan, and it seems that I think we fit within that plan. So I was like, base the model on that. If we reduce sizes, it's just going to knock the capacity of what we're looking to do out.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on his question. I think one thing that would probably help the residents understand what that all means, right? So do you guys have any kind of valuation, any kind of numbers that we can share with the town to understand what that break point is, right? So there's got to be a number of units that makes it feasible for you guys and also makes it feasible for the town to, meet halfway in the middle there and make it a good project. Is there anything that we can share that helps us understand that number?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you guys look pretty simple overall, the business from the high elevation view. If you buy units at $100,000 a door and you go to rent them, any developer will tell you it's a tight number, for a rental. It's a very tight number. If you want to go for sale, maybe it's okay, but these we're looking to do for rental. And it's about what the property's costing, $100,000 a door. There's just no room to build less. Then you'd be 150 or 200 a door, and it's not going to work on rentals. I don't care what development you get.
How does the requirement that we have to put COA units in these types of developments, how does that affect those numbers? Because you obviously have to factor that in.
Well, it does. That actually, reduces or increases the rate per door for the market rate. The thing is that we always hope for, because it's tough to see how that whole thing unfolds, is it a break even? Is it a 10% gain? Is it 20% loss? You know what I mean? So we don't even understand that total math yet, but we'll figure it out and we'll fight for what we need to.
I think maybe from an architectural perspective, can you help us understand where you come up with the 14 feet for the first floor and then the 10 feet for the other floors, and how we come up with those numbers to get to the potential 50 foot?
Well, the elevator is 14 feet because obviously working with T-Bar, we have to get emergency vehicle access coming into the back of the buildings, and you need a 14-foot clear to come through for a fire truck, even though in the design days with T-Bar, I pushed back saying a fire truck's not going to come into an interior parking lot when the building's on fire only 20 feet away, and usually they'll stay down the street. But it's the requirements for the code, so T-Bar was right, I was wrong, and you want so we have to start lifting the building up higher just to get the trucks to come in. Obviously, though, you don't need 14 feet for a ceiling on a retail space, but being that the building bridges the entrance to the back of the interior parking lot, and again, the parking lot is nice and private and contained. It's not like having a big parking lot in front of a residential development. We're just keep track of the street. So when I started doing the initial massing, I kept the parking all hidden, thinking that we'd be okay. And then as it kept evolving, it just wouldn't look good having a massive parking lot on a residential street to support the project.
Is that entryway the only access point into the center?
The only access.
So that's why it needs to be 14 feet. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I have a statement I'd like to make.
Yeah, I have comments too.
But we should finish questions first.
Yeah, finish questions. If there's any more questions.
I guess for the clarity for the public that's here, the step back area, the total footage is 48 feet, or is it to the 50 feet?
I mean, to be honest with you,
Yeah, the setback, man, the building is at 50 feet at the top of that crown view
detail
Right.
at the pushback area.
At the pushback area.
It's really 2 25-year-old buildings, essentially, with the second, and the third and fourth floors are pushed out.
Okay, thank you.
On the top of that second floor, is there any plans for anything there? Is that open space? Is that going to be terrace space? What is that?
Well, we were thinking about terraces as well for the apartments on the first floor, we kind of nice, yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, I have some concerns, of course, but this is going to be a major decision that we're going to have to make. I'd kind of like to hear from the residents.
If you want to do public comments, or if you want to do comments from the council first before we open it up, if anybody, yeah, any comments from the council?
I think for the benefit of the community, I have a few things I'd like to make. First, I'd like to talk about the timeline of event, elaborate a little bit more on the timeline of events that got us here, address some of the planning board's comments, and then my own assessment of the particular plan. So, this goes back, for me, this goes back 3 years. This goes back to the campaign when Councilwoman Sarah Cole and I were knocking every door in town. We were hearing constant feedback from everybody. We need to revitalize, we need to redevelop that downtown. And it became, I think, a core part of our campaign, such that when we were elected, we started meeting with members of the governing body individually, having coffee, trying to gain a consensus that we would move this forward. By March of 2022, 3 months after we took office, there was that consensus from the governing body that we wanted to support this. We wanted to move this forward. We hired Redevelopment Council, so that was just 3 months in. I should note that really our responsibility is to designate areas, redevelopment zones, work with redevelopers, try to recruit them in. We do not own these properties. We don't spend tax dollars on buying these properties. We certainly don't have the money to do that. We don't spend tax dollars on building on these lots. We certainly don't have the money to do that either. And so in March of 2022, we set down this entire endeavor. That led to having our planner basically do a study for us. We sent it to the planning board. There was a hearing, and then we designated, the first property we designated was what I call the Rocket property, which is across the street from this, an area in need of redevelopment. I have to say, I was at that meeting. There was overwhelming support from the residents of that area. We had people saying not only we support this, but we want to expand this. We want our properties included. I think there was a real hunger for people in this area to see a revitalization, some new properties on what's otherwise vacant land at the moment. That was about a 6 to 9 month process. By June of 2023, we hadn't received any proposals. So 18 months into this process, nothing. And I began personally to lose faith in whether there was real interest in Waldwick having redevelopment moving forward. So rather than give up, we sat with our administrator at the time, Patrick Weary, and said, hey, we should try to recruit some developers to come into this area, submit some proposals. So we as a governing body supported a resolution that put an RFP together that recruited redevelopers to come in. We received one proposal. I think Craig spoke about that earlier. Not only was there some miscommunication, but the design that was being proposed was massive. It was like 6 stories. It was a wall from Prospect to Frederick. It would totally transform this town in a negative way, and I think we rejected it immediately. It's not at all what we want to do here as a governing body in Waldwick. So now we're 18 months in. We received one plan, then nothing. November, 3 months later, we said, hey, maybe there's something fundamentally wrong with the property that we designated back at Rocket. Maybe we should expand it and look at the property that we're talking about today, the Rite Aid property, Harrison Ave. Maybe there's something about the Rocket property that makes it undevelopable. I have no idea. So we had that discussion, and that was in November of 2023. Finally, in March of 2024, we received 2 more proposals. One proposal was for Rocket, the Rocket property. We looked at that. Again, high-density apartments, kind of a wall, 6 stories, whatever, 5 stories from end to end, bookend to bookend. It wasn't what we were looking for. The governing body here rejected that plan as well. I think we received an initial plan from the developers that are here. I'm not sure. It was from a developer that looked to develop the Harrison Ave property as well. We looked at that and we said, it's getting closer to what we want, but it's not hitting that critical piece of retail on the first floor of Prospect. That's a key hallmark for what we're, I think, trying to achieve. We want to maintain first floor retail, so we rejected it, sent it back. That was November of 2023, right? So we're now 2 years into the process, 3 proposals, none of them kind of fitting with what we want downtown. So finally, 6 months later, we receive a plan, right? We received this plan. And I think that there was a majority consensus, not a unanimous consensus, but a majority consensus that this gets closer to what we want. It's building, I think, a beautiful property on an otherwise vacant land. Luxury, it checked all the boxes. And so we, decided to introduce this ordinance. We unanimously consented to send this to the planning board. Planning board did their review in November and December, and we're now here. So 3 years, 4 proposals, 2 to 3 hearings, multiple closed sessions, tons of work went into this. The long story short is, I think we've worked very hard. We are not getting proposals quite like, the proposals we're getting are far more outlandish than what we're seeing here. So for any concern over the height, what I can promise you is what we've seen before dwarfs this. It's insane. So that has been the process to date. Now, as it relates to the planning board, let me just say, I greatly appreciate the planning board for taking this up. I think that when you're on a board in Waldwick, whether it's the planning board, zoning board, the council, the Board of Education, it's a thankless job, and it's a volunteer job, and everyone works very hard. So I thank everybody for kind of taking the effort forward. I will say, though, I had some concerns about the way that these meetings were being held. Not the members of the board, but the way that the attorney was running these meetings. We had, at the start of the first meeting, council members asked to stand, basically acknowledge who they were, and threatened to be kicked out of the meeting because it was a unscheduled visit from council to a planning board meeting. And to me, that felt like intimidation at best, illegal at worst. So it did not get off to a good start. The planning board did the best that they could to discuss the plans. They had very little information, I felt, as what we were trying to achieve, the history that it took to get us there. And they actually adjourned that meeting without public comment, despite the fact that we had, quote, 2,000% more people in attendance at that meeting than has ever been seen before. That would be like us adjourning this meeting tonight and sending you all home without public comment. That's what it felt like. It was kind of a punch to the gut. They planned their second meeting as, again, a work session with no public comment. They heard nothing from public comment, and then took a vote at the end of that meeting to basically turn this down with restrictions. So, again, I'm not sure if that violates the Open Public Meetings Act, but it sure as heck felt like it. And it made me feel like the residents really didn't have much of a say in what the planning board was putting out there. That notwithstanding, they did mention the height. I sympathize with their concerns over the height. When I came into this, when we set this out, we had grand visions of redeveloping our downtown with a two stories all the way through, like a Nantucket type antique little shops. We thought that we were going to be able to rebuild this town with just absolute quaint beauty. But I think we found out very quickly that's not the type of proposals that are coming in. That's not the type of redevelopment that happens. And the proposals that we saw were crazy. They were too big. And what we have here, I think, is beautiful, and it's a middle ground. It's the best we're going to get. If we vote this down, we're essentially going to be stuck with just an empty lot there for the next 10 years. That I'm convinced of, because it's just not going to move forward. As it relates to the comment of a member of the governing body having an abnormal personal interest, I can only imagine that is directed at me, because I have a great personal interest here, and I've heard the rumors. But let me just be clear, my personal interest is only in the interest of Waldwick. I want this downtown to be beautiful. The residents of Waldwick deserve more than vacant lots, rundown properties, an unsafe, not a prosperous downtown. We deserve more, and so I'll continue to work hard. And for whomever is thinking that this is too fast, too passionate, too hard, I promise you, this is 1/1000th of the amount of energy that can be put into projects like this, and I will ratchet it up in the next 3 years to make sure that we do the business of the borough. I promise you that much. As it relates to addressing the Rite Aid property, you know, I sympathize with the planning board. I also agree. I think we should be looking at this from a holistic point of view. I've tried to get the council to look at this from a holistic point of view. I would love to address the Rite Aid property. I would love to see first floor retail all the way down Prospect. I would love to turn that Rite Aid into a community center, into a senior center. I would love to take the streetscape along Franklin Turnpike and turn it into a greenery with a memorial. We need to continue using that parking lot for all of the parking that's going to come into this downtown. We can't build on that structure. I think we need to be having these discussions. But we don't own that property. We can't buy that property, and we certainly can't build on it. We can't do anything unless a developer comes in, and I promise you this tonight. If we vote this down, no developer is going to come within 10 feet of Waldwick for another 10 years, and we're going to be stuck with vacant properties, run-down buildings, empty Rite Aids, and a parking lot that's just falling into absolute disarray. So, you know, if you haven't figured it out by now, I 1,000% support this bill as is. I understand that there's concerns on the height, but I and others have worked very hard for 3 years to bring us to this point, and I think this is the best we're going to get. There's a couple reasons. Revitalization, as I said, we deserve better. We deserve a safe, prosperous, fun community to go to. I shouldn't have to go to Hoboken. I shouldn't have to go to Ridgewood. I should not have to go to Allendale to go out with my family, to go out with my friends, to go out with my neighbors. I think we all deserve the right to walk down and enjoy a meal, spend some time with each other. I think that we also are in deep financial trouble here in Waldwick. I've been saying this for the past year as I've worked with the Finance Committee. I mean, Waldwick has done a great job keeping costs low. I've never seen a budget so tight in my life. We could not cut $1 out of this budget. It's just not possible. It's not there. But we have no tax revenue, and we are not investing in our infrastructure enough. We are not investing in the community. We need to get creative. We need to find ways to generate more tax revenue, and this will bring us more tax revenue. This will give us, you know, several times excess on what we're gaining in taxes on this property alone, and it will spur a domino effect where we get more and more beautiful properties coming into this town, revitalizing that downtown. And finally, this is my last point. You know, by passing this tonight, we maintain control on what goes into this property. We pass an ordinance that says we want X, Y, or Z into this. We've just been hit hard with a COA mandate from the state. 180 new units we have to put into this town. 180 new affordable housing units we have to put into Waldwick. If we vote this down tonight, my fear is that this is going to end up in the courts. The courts do not care about what the residents of Waldwick think. They do not care about what the planning board thinks. They do not care about what the council thinks. If this ends up in the courts, we're not going to have a 4-story building that looks beautiful. We're going to have a 10-story building with 90% COA units. I really think the town deserves better. I really think that this puts us on the right path to prosperity. It helps balance our budget. It just puts us in a good position. And I would just urge everyone here tonight to don't be shy. Come up, voice your approval, voice your dissent. I think we want to hear from you. We need public opinion on this because I think we have some concerns up here. And you know, at that, I'll turn it over to the other members of council. Thank you.
I'd like to hear from the public.
I'd like to make my comments as well.
No. Do you have a comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. As Mike mentioned, it's absolutely beautiful, and I'm in support as well. I'd like to share some of my thoughts. So as Mike mentioned, we worked on this project for 3 years. The council sent RFPs, designated 2 areas as redevelopment zones, and held multiple planning board hearings and countless closed sessions on the matter. This council rejected multiple plans from developers because the proposed density was too high, too large, or didn't prioritize the retail space. We've seen what the other development options are, and they are far worse. There's been a majority consensus from this council for this exact plan all along, and this council voted unanimously to support and send this redevelopment plan to the planning board. I urge everyone to vote with the same consensus. This is a beautiful plan that solves multiple problems for the borough. It contributes to the need to revitalize our downtown. It initiates progress toward a fully rebuilt, safe, and prosperous downtown. It helps to narrow our budget deficits by adding much-needed tax revenue without putting a greater burden on the current residents. It solves the need to find a place to start adding the COA units that we were just mandated to add. By passing this, we maintain control over what type of redevelopment is built in this area. Voting this plan down at the 11th hour will potentially set up a battle in courts, and the courts will control what is built in this area. The courts don't care about us, and we risk having a 10-story building, effectively a housing project. Like I said before, I urge everyone to vote for the plan we've been working on and do what's best for Waldwick. It's time to give Waldwick a facelift. The people have been asking for a more vibrant downtown year after year, and this will finally help create that vision. For too long, we've sat on the sidelines and haven't made updates to our downtown area. Let's take action and breathe new life into our downtown and create a place where businesses want to invest, families want to settle, and residents can enjoy local restaurants, shops, and recreation. When we hesitate on responsible redevelopment, we risk falling behind and losing out on potential growth and prosperity. Let's do what's right for Waldwick. Thank you. I'd love to hear from the residents as well.
Any other comments from the council before we open up to the public? Seeing none, just a motion to open it up to the public.
Motion to open up to the public.
Motion by Councilwoman Weber, seconded by Councilwoman. Okay, public, you come up, just state your name, address is not required.
Blaine Bradley, have been a resident in Waldwick. I now have my second home here. I heard a lot of words today, such as aesthetics, pleasing looks, things of that nature, but things that are true that we need to really focus on with this. And what I feel is it can be a beacon for economic opportunity. What I feel, or what I want to say, is that there has to be perception or increased perception in the value in Waldwick. And I think that this project would add on to that. At least that's my full perception with a young family and wanting to see where it can go for the long term. That being said, if we don't keep it on a hyper-local level and focus of how we can invest into it, and if it goes to the state level, as mentioned, that is preposterous in my mind, if that is to happen. That being said, I certainly think, like I said, yeah, sure, it's aesthetically pleasing, it's all those things, but the biggest thing is the economic driving factor, and hoping that it would do the same that we've seen in other towns. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Al Golden. I'm going to do you fellas a favor here tonight. This place is full of people that come out of their homes on a cold night to hear what you guys have got to say. And you stand up here and you're talking to the council, but you're forgetting that you got people back there in the back row. You don't need a microphone. But some of you fellas do, and a few fellas on the, council also. You have to learn to use a microphone. That's why they put them here. And, I'm sitting in the first row, and some of the words you're saying, I can't hear because I'm looking at your back. But you got people all the way in the back there, they would like to hear every word you say. The only question that I have about this thing is, where are you going to park the cars?
If you are laid out the site, it shows us there's one car for each townhome in a garage, and there's one car out. And the balance of the parking, so there's 42 parking spaces for the townhomes, and we need another 42, and evidently in the parking area that you are laid out on the interior of the site, leaves us 87 total parking spaces. So we have 43 or 44 parking spaces in the parking. So according to...
Where's the parking area?
Al, the parking lot is behind the buildings. It's on the interior. Yeah.
It's all hidden on the interior of the site.
On the street, right?
No.
Your house.
Well, you can't count street parking, yeah. So, all the parking lot is on the interior of the site. That's why we have that one ingress and egress from West Prospect, for the fire truck access to come inside. And all the balance of the parking is all on the inside. And according to the engineer, we comply.
I don't see one part area. It looks beautiful.
But yeah, you wouldn't see any cars on the retail area. All the parking is through the private garage door, and it's
hidden behind the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry. I'll be quick. I promise. I probably don't need a microphone either. Hi, everyone. I'm Nadia Lupino. I'm a lifelong Waldeck resident. I actually moved back after getting married because I love Waldeck so much, and I decided to raise my children here because I have so much pride and such a sense of community for Waldeck. It's where my family immigrated from Italy and where a sense of family and community has always been and really close to my heart. Like Mike had mentioned, Waldeck is a town that's sandwiched between gorgeous other towns. The architects had mentioned Alpine and Montvale, and I think that Waldeck has just been a Passover town where people generally don't hang out. Even as a child or as a teenager, I did not hang out here. I went to other towns to hang out. And I really want my children to have this. I really want them to be able to come and be safe and be in the town, which is Waldeck, which is gorgeous. It has beautiful townspeople who are obviously very excited tonight. It has top-notch schools and very dedicated officials. And I really think that they care about the future of our town. And in doing that, I really think that what's missing is the broader appeal to others and to have the potential to be a town that draws people in, not only for its charm and close-knit community, but also as being a standout location within Bergen County. Because right now, I think that Waldeck isn't that. When I say I'm from Waldeck, people generally ask where that is, and I have to say it's next to Ridgewood, and I have to say it's next to Ramsey, because they have these beautiful and quaint downtowns where people are going to. I think that this is the key unlock, potentially, to help unlock and have Waldeck become that special charm and be really a standout in terms of where Bergen County, or where it is on the map for Bergen County. Lastly, I just want to say that as a parent, I really think this is important. I really encourage the board to not think about what it is today, but what it's going to be for the future. And that's my children, right? And I want my children to be safe, and I want them to have a place, and I want this to be a legacy where they saw this progress, and then they can even better to help it. And this is a sustainable endeavor that they can also build upon for themselves. So thank you.
Members of the council, Kelly, Steve, Greg, good evening. My name is Randy Reveley. I'm the owner of the properties at 37, 39, 41, and 43 Harrison Avenue. I also own 28 West Prospect Street, which is diagonally across from these properties. I purchased 28 West Prospect Street in 1998. When I purchased that building, there hadn't been a building touched west of Harrison Avenue in probably over 30 years. So I took the initiative, I bought the property, I moved my business there, I renovated it. I'm a builder. I'm not an investor, I'm not a developer, I'm a builder. So my business model is I buy properties, I use my crew to renovate it, and I sell it. I bought 34 West Prospect Street, 32, 34. I sold that, 2 Lafayette Place, 5 Lafayette Place, I bought it from the ground. By the way, I just finished renovating the VFW building on Houston Avenue. That was a labor of love, strictly a labor of love. My point is that we're west of Franklin Turnpike. This is a zone that's not getting any attention that, from people who would want to move there. Case in point, I have the vacant lot over there at Harrison Avenue now. While I'm working in my construction business, I'm still trying to do something with the lot. So I know an attorney who has contacts with real estate divisions and a real estate broker, with Chase Bank, with Starbucks, with Chick-fil-A. They're not interested. They don't want to think about it. They want to be a player on the highway or maybe on Franklin Turnpike, but not off of Franklin Turnpike, not west of Franklin Turnpike. It's a struggling area, no question about it. So I'm intimately involved in this property. Before I owned the properties, about 14 years ago, I'm over at 28 West Prospect Street. And by the way, all these properties, there's 8 properties there. And then there's my property at 28 West Prospect Street. I'm the only owner who's in the area. Everybody else is an absentee owner or investor. They're not watching their properties. So I see the rats crawling around on the streets about 14 years ago. So we found out they were, I hired an exterminator, and he found the source of the infestation. He found the nests and he baited them. They were on the commercial properties where the people aren't there all the time. They come in and work, they leave, they don't even know what's going on. So he baits them. I go to all the houses and try to contact the owners. I can't find them. I talked to the tenants. I went to the Borough Hall. I got the tax records, and I contacted them, and I told them we had a problem.
I got him to agree. I went out and bought 12 steel garbage cans, because the plastic garbage cans on 6 residential properties had holes 4 inches big in the bottom of these garbage cans. So this is the kind of thing we're dealing with. I'm the only landlord in the area and the only owner in the area who was there. So I see these things going on. Now, quite frankly, this is the first time I've seen this rendering and know what this project is about. I thought it would be a lot bigger. Here's what's going on. You want to develop today. Consider that real estate's gone up 20% easily in the last 3 or 4 years. Consider that building costs have gone up 50% in the last 5 years. This is a reality. When you go around all of Bergen County, any place there's near a public center or near public transportation or near a town center, you're not going to find buildings less than 4 stories high. This building is much smaller than I envisioned it when I was talking to the people who want to buy it for the last 2.5 years, by the way. Right? And this is a gorgeous building. This would be the shot in the arm that west of Franklin Turnpike needs. Hey, what's on the sides of these properties? To the west is Rocket, to the east is Rite Aid, to the north is Columbia Bank, and the north side of the Rite Aid property, and to the south is West Prospect Street, which is a viable commercial street and an area that's desirable. Chuck Wanamaker and myself with the Waldo Community Alliance, we approached the borough, was it over 10 years ago, Chuck, right? And we did all the new sidewalks. We organized all the sidewalks on West Prospect Street, and the borough put in the vintage lighting, which really turned that street into a really nice little place to be. It's become a little more homey. So I got approached by somebody that, who could do this, which I couldn't. And I was just happy as could be for that area of Warwick, because it will absolutely transform us, no question about it. And I do hope you see to approve this project. Thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Ritchie. So I come before you today to basically just say how in dire need we are of this redevelopment. I've been a lifelong resident here. I just can't believe that we're not unanimously voting for this to be approved. I find that very ironic. Right now, in walking distance to my home, there is an empty parking lot and rundown homes. And I have friends all over in Upper Saddle River, Mahwah, Montvale. That's why most of them moved out of Waldwick, because they have lucrative downtowns, places for where their kids can go, hang out, have fun, and for the adults as well. We don't have that here in Waldwick. We need to be comparable to Ridgewood, Hohokus. Right now, we're not even comparable to them. So instead of being always in mediocrity, let's make Waldwick again prosperous, flourish, and especially for my children, I have 2 little girls, and for my family, so I can be proud to live in Waldwick. Thank you.
Frank McGurno. I've been living in Waldwick more than a half century. I got family and friends. All my relatives lives in this town, and me and my parents both came from Italy, and we settled here. And I tell you, I love Waldwick because all my kids are here, my grandkids, and right now this project is the best thing could ever happen to us, because every time I pass by, because I don't live too far from there, every time I pass by, all you see is an empty lot, parked cars. It looks like a junkyard. And also it brings some money to the community, because we don't have that much going on, and they keep raising the tax, and they can take some of that money offset off that project. It's just like I used to live in Waldwick before I moved up this way, and the same thing with the DeMartini Lumberyard. It looked like a junk. Rats were running around all over the place. Now they fix it up and it looks beautiful, and they also increase the value of the house. That's why they're all going up. I know everybody wants to live in Waldwick. For me, this is the best thing could ever happen. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm quite loud as well. My name is Jamie Gilfetter. I've only lived in Waldwick now for 5 years. It has been 5 amazing years. I actually got married in this very room to my husband. So we don't have any plans on leaving, and therefore I am invested in this town. For me, one of my favorite things about the town is its walkability. When we were looking for homes, my husband would always laugh because I'd say, I want to be able to walk to a bar. And now that I have a child, it's now I get to walk to the whistle stop and things of that nature. And so for me, getting to be able to walk to Dunkin' Donuts and walk to the farmer's market and the library are my favorite things about this town. So for us to develop something like this with all new retail space, I think just only improves the walkability and the nature of that for this town. I kind of like Waldwick being a hidden gem, so it's not so much for other outsiders to come in, but rather for our own town to be able to enjoy the fruits of our labor. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole St. Ange. I grew up in Waldwick. I spent a couple of years in Connecticut and moved back here. Just finished renovating my house in Waldwick with my 2 children, my husband, because I'm planning on staying here. I have my parents here in town. I have my sister here in town. And I believe, that Waldwick, is a really great place to be. And I think that this is really something that we need. I can think back to growing up, and I can remember in Wyckoff when there was only, the Grand Union there, in Boulder Run, and like now seeing what that is, I feel like, this is like the stepping stone of, I remember, that all turned, and I live over there in that Boulder Run shopping center, as I'm sure many of you do, and thinking, there's the ability for Waldwick to turn around and build something great. I think we should do it.
Evening, everybody. I'm Eric Wall. I just moved here with my wife 3 years ago. She's originally from Waldwick. She grew up here. She spent her whole life here. I'm a huge supporter in revitalizing this as an outsider, coming in and not trying to make fun of it. Like, there's no Main Street. It's just streets in Waldwick. The one thing that I haven't really heard anybody kind of specify, and I'm genuinely curious if you have an answer or the developers, is if we're bringing in more people and more transient people coming in, I keep hearing safety is a concern, more safety, and that's great. My wife is also just recently on the school safety committee that was started up, but she heard in that meeting there's not enough cops to help with school pickup and drop-off, and there was unfortunately a little girl who was struck by a car a couple months ago, so I would just be curious of how are we handling that? I would have imagined there's a new increase for public safety, and what does that do to how do we afford that? And if more people are coming in, we have a great educational system in Waldwick, which was one of the reasons why I was happy to move here with my wife and my now 3-year-old daughter. How will we handle, I would assume, more teachers, more need for space for students? I want to make sure we're maintaining that so our children can all grow up in the place that we love and enjoy, and we're setting our children up for the future. So those would be the 2 questions I have.
I'd like to address a little bit of that. One, I think this project brings in that financial benefit that we need as a town to do those things, to support increased police force, to support infrastructure changes. Each and every meeting we're here, we have residents come up, talk about water or talk about roads, and those things all cost money, and we need to invest in that infrastructure in the town. And bringing in these new units brings in that tax revenue that we need in order to do that without increasing all of our taxes beyond what we can possibly do. And that includes the schools, right? Because they get a large percentage of your tax dollars that go there. And actually leads me to a question, and maybe one of you guys might have the answer, is being that these are rental units, a lot of 1-bedroom, a lot of 2-bedroom, is there any studies about the number of children that it might add to our roles and things like that if residents are concerned about?
I recently did a project, and our planner at that project testified based on demographics and based upon studies of other similar projects. The project had 28 units, and there was, as I recall, 6 children under the age of 18, with 4 in the school system. So it was a concern. I was at a planning board getting an approval of a project, which we did, and that was a question that was raised by one of the members of the public, and they had this study already done. So that's the best I know of it. They're 2 bedrooms. For many people, it's where they start out. For other people, it's where they go back to when they downsize. It's one when 2 or 3 kids come along, they're no longer in a building like this. So I understand it. It's much less of a school population than the single-family home option.
And just to address, so everybody is aware, and it probably shouldn't, if this plan gets approved tonight, the developer still has to go through the full site plan process through the planning board, where they'll have a planner and they'll have a lot of those questions addressed as well at that time during the public hearing in front of the planning board.
And Craig, will we have a full financial kind of overview on the impact to the borough at that time, or does that come later?
Depends on how quickly we sit down and work with our financial analyst on that.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
We could have something shortly, either around that time or shortly thereafter.
Sure.
Any other?
Good evening, everyone. Rocco Lupino. I live on 92 Ridgewald Avenue. Relatively new to Waldwick, but my wife was Nadia who came up here. I absolutely love this design. This looks really nice. It'll create a buzz in the community, and also bring in other patrons from other towns, right? But yeah, hopefully it gets approved. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christine Figliolo. I live on Durante Road. I grew up in Brooklyn, moved to Queens, and then we moved to Ridgewood, New Jersey. We had a bustling downtown. We still do in Ridgewood. It's beautiful. I've lived here 27 years, and I've longed for a town like Ridgewood. I've been on the Chamber of Commerce in this town for 23 years, and we tried so hard in the beginning to get business to join the chamber. It was so difficult because we didn't have enough that we had to open up the Chamber of Commerce, and we became an open chamber in order to grow it. So we invited other towns to join us. I concur with Ms. Saracola and Mr. Ritchie on the plan. I think this is fantastic. I think we need to do something to revitalize this town, to bring in business that will help our taxes. I, too, go to other towns for dinner and to go out with my family, and I would love to be able to just stay here and do that here. So I support this plan 1,000%. It's time for Waldwick to get back on the map and to be the town. We're in the middle. We're the gem in the middle of all these great towns. So we need to stand out. And when we do revitalize, you'll see what happens. You build it and other people will come, other businesses will come, and we'll be truly prosperous. Thank you.
Christine, one thing I'd like to add about local businesses, right? We add new residents to town. We attract customers to our local businesses. In Waldwick, we're lucky enough not to have a lot of chain businesses, right? We have a lot of small family businesses. You just look around that area, you have Natal's, you have Charlie's Place, you have El Azteca, you have Reinhold's. These are all family businesses, a lot of them who live in town. And I think that it'll benefit those communities. And those businesses support our community. They're at our kids' fundraisers. They support our schools. They're doing our 5K. They do anything we ask our businesses to do in town. And I think this helps them and maybe attracts new ones that would help us too.
Good evening. My name is Rich Saracola. I came here in support of at least exploring the development of the property in question. But I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to address the council when I say that behind me is what I believe to be almost like the dream team of construction. I've been in the construction business for 35 years. Bob Zamplin's plans have been in front of me many, many times. DMR Construction, the same thing. To work for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, that is a challenge way, way bigger and more impact than what we're doing here. So I was pleasantly surprised when I see these two individuals. You will not get a better product for the town of Waldwick with these people here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Josh Sheriff, I gotta say, who doesn't love Waldwick? I mean, this is amazing, and these guys are like awesome. I mean, this is I gotta say, I work for Whole Foods in Woodcliff Lake, and when I see those beautiful buildings, I think of like, wow, Waldwick is gonna get this now. And I am like really impressed with the architecture. I think the brick reminds me of how our Borough Hall is and how our municipal and how our public safety building is. I think the brick is so beautiful, and I can't tell you how I think we shouldn't turn this down tonight. I think everybody's already in support, as I've heard people come up to the microphone, and I'm excited. I think we're gonna, like I said, I've lived in Waldwick a long time now, growing up here, and I have to say that I used to go to Wyckoff with my friends, and you'd see Boulder Run, and you're like, wow, look at all this place you could hang out. And now you get to go to our own little Boulder Run, but even better, Waldwickified, it's pretty cool. So I'm excited, and I can't wait for the final product. These guys are going to do great. It's like Mr. Saracola said, it's going to be great. So we got this.
Thanks, John.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Nappy, and I really just wanted to kind of reiterate what Christine said. I'm also on the chamber in town, and it'd be nice to see a nice downtown, and we have a lot of local people from New Waldwick also working and running their businesses in town. It'd be really nice to have something like this, like some of the other towns have. So I'm just in support of it, and that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Jim Schultz, 52 Harrison Avenue. As far as the parking spot, you said there's 85. Is that just for the residents?
The way I understand it, excuse me, it's 87. That includes the retail as well.
For the retail. And will there be any parking on the street on Harrison Ave?
No, none are proposed. The borough planner did an analysis of the type of parking requirements for these type of units and retail, and he uses different manuals. One's called the ITE manual for transportation engineers and planners. And they look into that and they calculate what the parking would be required for residents and their guests. And they come up with these numbers. And he showed that number in his report. And we exceed what that number is by one parking space.
And if it doesn't fit, where do they park then? So if there's 90 cars, because I don't know if you've ever been in that area at lunchtime or at dinner time? Okay.
That happens in any downtown.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't want you to come up here and say there won't be residential parking. Because I guarantee you at 6 o'clock at night, there's going to be cars parked all along here. The restaurant that's there, the deli that's there.
So that's an issue that the planning board will address at the time we, as counsel for the board has said, that's something that we still have to address.
Okay.
This is very preliminary.
Okay.
I'm not saying there would never be any parking there. What I'm saying is that based upon the borough's planner, he is saying that there'll be sufficient parking on site for the normal day.
Okay. As far as, because I was a little surprised that we have to have 180 COA units within how many years?
Well, so just to clarify, 180 is the number that the DCA just released for the next 10 years. We are working with our planner to determine if that's an accurate number. We don't necessarily believe that could be an accurate number, but it's going to be something. And we have to plan for it for the next, it's a 10-year period in which we have to fulfill those numbers.
I think you
But
said,
the important part about that is, by January 31st, we have to submit a plan to the state of what we need to do, or what our recommendation is. Obviously, the state is releasing recommended numbers based upon a seemingly arbitrary calculation based upon what they see on a map. They don't know what Waldwick is, other than I can point to it. So that is an important point that we're trying to control a little bit with some of these projects, and present the state of New Jersey a plan that works for Waldwick, not necessarily to put 180 units in, because I don't think any of us really want to do that.
And Mr. Shows, we get, I believe it's a 2-for-1 credit if we build this development here. So for every COA unit that goes in, we get credit for 2 if we do this project.
So looking at this, it's 15%, so what's that, about 6 units? 6 units here. And then at any given time, are you going to change that 15% to 50% in that building, or it's always only going to be 15%?
Be restricted to the 15%.
To 15. I remember, Mike, you mentioned something, it's good because we're looking at dilapidated areas. At the last planning board meeting, I mentioned there's a piece of property on West Crescent Avenue, 99 and 103, and I think they had a fire in the house about 10 years ago, and it's dilapidated, it's sitting there and nothing's being done. Property next to it floods. Are we looking at doing anything with that property?
Yes, actually, just recently, our zoning official has been out there. We've been working with that property owner. The exterior of the property has been cleaned up significantly, and then the next phase is to actually work on the interior of that property as well.
Okay, so he's going to put windows in and doors and take all the
Correct.
plywood that's there. As far as the financing for this, so when I was at the planning board meeting, they mentioned something about using a pilot program. Are you guys familiar with that? Or who's responsible for the financing of this project then?
That is something that still needs to be determined. You've heard from the developer here as to what he has the capability of doing and the type of projects he's done in the past. He recited over $300 billion in bonding. So one way or the other, it can be done.
Okay, and are we going to pilot this or are we not going to pilot this?
If a request comes in for a pilot, we will sit down with the developer and discuss a pilot with the developer on the project. Be completely frank, I would anticipate that request to be made, and we'll discuss it. And I can tell you that depending on the negotiations, most likely the municipal portion, the municipality from the borough side, over the lifespan of whatever that pilot would be, would receive more tax revenue than they would under a conventional taxation.
Based on 100% occupancy, I'm going to guess.
Well, the calculations are, there'll be a financial analyst that'll do it, and it's based on the stabilization of the building, correct?
Was the train station, was that a pilot program?
That was not a pilot.
Any reason why that wasn't a pilot program?
They did not request one at the beginning of it. They came to us late in the game and requested one, but they had already started construction, so it was impossible for us to do because they already had a shovel in the ground. The pilot's got to be requested before a shovel's in the ground.
Okay. So from an environmental study side, so I'm guessing everybody here's done some type of project. You renovate your home or something, and you just don't go in and say, oh, change my bedroom and tell me what it costs later on, right? Does that make sense? I'm not going to do work. I'm not going to let you work on my house and then tell me after you do the work how much it costs. Safe to say? Okay. So I'm hoping that there's going to be some type of environmental study here, which basically says, you know what? You're going to have additional waste, sewer, water, education. What's going to be that additional cost of that? Because I look at it like this. If it's $100 and it's going to cost us $120, we're down $20. So I really don't want to do this if we lose money. I mean, are we going to lose money on this?
The borough will not lose money.
Do the taxpayers lose money?
No.
So when this is done, we're not going to lose money?
Correct.
No,
Okay.
the premise of this is to gain
What?
money.
It's a positive.
The whole purpose is to redevelop this area so that the borough increases their tax base and increases the tax revenue to the borough.
And if we use that pilot program, it increases based on the occupancy level of the building.
Correct. The way the pilot program works is the borough negotiates a certain percentage of the gross revenue of the project. So obviously, as the project gets leased up and more people are paying rent, the higher the dollar figure is that comes to the borough.
Okay. So I was looking through the development plan, because I mean, we always talk about the master plan, and we talk about the goal of redevelopment plan. So are we doing this to revitalize the center of town, or are we doing this for affordable housing? Which one? If we had to prioritize it, which one is it?
For me, it's revitalization. It's always been about revitalization. Now that we have this new COA mandate, we absolutely are integrating that in, but that came in at the last minute of all of this.
But I will say, not to step on any council, Waldwick has always been proactive in meeting their COA numbers ever since this first started back in the 80s, so that we weren't faced with having some type of 200-unit, high-density structure in town. We were always, we filed our plans, we filed the court actions that we needed to protect ourselves against builder remedy lawsuits. That's what they're called when towns get forced on this. So, yes, this was in the works, but we knew that a number was going to come down the line eventually for this fourth round from 2025 to 2035. So it's part of being proactive to address those numbers so that we're ahead of the game.
And you talked about downtown revitalization, right? So some people say, well, that's not really downtown. Well, define where downtown is. To me, this is a trigger. This is a starting point of a much larger project. And it spurs development in other areas. We improved the facade of that area. Maybe across the street also wants to do something. Randy's done his property there. Maybe the next property does it. Rite Aid goes, whatever happens there with their business, and that property gets developed. And maybe something happens down on Prospect Street in the center of town. I know the mayor in the past has worked with the business owners there to try to improve the aesthetics of those buildings. I think it's all wrapped together in this, and it helps us to get around or comply with the COA regulations. As council just said, Waldwick's done an amazing job with the different types of housing types that we've used, the Bristol, the Habitat for Humanity home, the group homes. Those are all things that we've done to meet the quotas. And now this next one's going to be really challenging. That's why we have to come up with a really good plan to defend Waldwick.
I mean, looking at the houses on Harrison Ave and what was done on Wayne Court, couldn't you put 5 beautiful houses on Harrison and then take that other piece and put the COA houses there instead of putting something like this up?
It's probably not financially viable.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, that's what would be proposed. I mean, we try to
Financially
restrict this to
viable
single
for,
family. No one's going to come in and demolish single-family homes and put single-family homes back up. There's just no return for a developer there, and I think unfortunately we're living in the reality of they also need to make money. I just don't think it's possible.
I mean, you also have to, this is what's being proposed.
Yep.
We've sat on this and we've asked for proposals and, it's.
I mean, I'm for revitalizing the area. My main concern is the cost to do it. And as long as everybody's willing to sign up tonight and say, it won't cost that, as long as everybody, when you guys pass this, it says it won't cost the taxpayers 1 penny more.
That's my
Do it.
question. What is your concern?
My
That's your
concern, okay, I appreciate the people saying for safety and this. You're going to put commercial space in there. You put a vaping in there, you put something in there that people don't want, guess what? We're talking about safety, is it really safe? Maybe it is, I don't know. But you know what? We need to look at it from a financial side, all right? And maybe if we can't raise tax revenue, maybe we need to reduce expenses, all right? You can do that. You're always not going to make additional revenue. So look at the expenses in town and reduce them.
Right, and from a fiscal standpoint, this development is not going to impact the residents in a negative way.
As long as when...
And people, I don't know if people like the design, don't like the design, I don't know, but I know that it will not.
Yeah, I mean,
that proportion, it will not.
Yeah, I mean, the 50-foot I'm not happy about, because Mr. Mayor, he lived on Durante, they put those townhouses there, he didn't want it at 47 feet. and we all came and said 47 feet was too high. So I'm not happy with the 50. I don't want it to cost more money than it should. Because you know what? It's additional water, it's additional waste, it's additional students in school. And let's not kid, because you know what? If you go out and look at because I appreciate how many kids it is, but look up the Center for Urban Policies at Rutgers, look up the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard, and they're going to give you a different number than what you came up with. That's what you should be looking at, okay? But again, hey, memorialize this and just say that it will not affect the taxpayers by 1 penny.
You can come to my house if we lose money on this. I'll give you my address.
Don't give me your house. I don't want your address, I want your house. Forget that.
There's just no way, I mean, we would not be doing this if we weren't going to make more money. It's an absolute, we need the money.
As the basic economics, there's needs and there's wants.
Yeah,
All right, to me, this may be a want, because if it costs more money and the taxes go up, you're gonna have one angry person here.
I understand. Right.
And just memorialize it, taxpayer will not have an increase.
On this day, we can say that, because it's beneficial for the
And again,
residents.
from the finance side, I would just love to see when the financial report comes in, whoever does it, make it the way that,
I mean, these,
Just so you know, just as this is an ordinance that has to be considered, in order to enter into the financial agreement, there's got to be a public hearing just like this. You will see a report from the financial analyst that will outline, we'll probably put it on a board like this or maybe up on the screen, and you will see the difference in the revenue.
if you can do it the same way the town does it now with that simple budget breakdown, which is beautiful, because you can take Finance 101 and understand it, that would be perfect. Thank you.
I appreciate your due diligence.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jason Usnick. I live on Drancy Road. Lived in Waldwick for 16 years. Have a wife, 2 kids, and I think something like this is what Waldwick needs. My 14-year-old son, well, almost 14, him and his buddies, they ride their bikes all over the place to Burger King. They go to Ridgewood. They're here, they're there. I'd rather see them go to somewhere downtown where they can go get a $9 cookie instead of driving to Ridgewood to go get it. I just think that something like this would give the whole entire community something to look forward to. And also, it's probably a springboard into redevelopment all the way down West Prospect. Newer families moving into the area is always a plus. More kids in the schools. I think the whole thing's great. Newer families move into the schools, the only requirement I have is that the kids play baseball.
Thank you, Jen, that's right.
Anybody else?
I just basically have one question. I'm Bob Rose. I lived in Waldwick since 1949. I'm looking at the building here, and it's beautiful. I'm not arguing that point. The question is, when they built the structure on D. Martini's lot, they wouldn't let them go no higher than 3 levels. If you remember, we had a plan here, 4 levels, and they were told they had to take that top level off. Reasons: one was the fire department didn't have the proper equipment to take care of something that high. Now I'm looking at a building here that's 4 structures high. What's the difference between them and that? That's 4 structures, no matter how you look at it. And along the railroad track, they had to take that whole top floor off. It almost didn't pay for them to build it.
What's the height of?
The height of the railroad, the height of the station's 43 feet to the top of the structure. I mean, in regards to difference, that would be something that would have to come up with the planning board as to what the fire department review letter is. You know, the difference is that was, I don't know if the Waldwick station went before the planning board or the zoning board. I presume it had to be the zoning board. And they approved that, whereas this is a redevelopment plan, so the council's crafted the redevelopment plan to fit this project. So that's really all I can say. And I
Well,
do
no,
believe there's
Just
portions
I'm
of the
questioning it
station.
only because that's
I do
4
believe
high,
portions of the
and they can
station
only go
that's
3 over there.
I do believe there's portions of the station that's 3 over the parking garage. It's 3 over 1. It's 3 over 1. It's three stories over 1 level of parking. So that's technically 4 stories in certain areas.
I'm only going by what they said at the time, they had to take that whole top floor down, from one end to the other. Originally, if you looked at the plans, what they had at the time, that was 4 stories high from one end to the other end. And they had to take the 4th floor out.
Was it 4 stories over 1,
4
making
over
it
1.
5? It was 5 stories high at the time, so it was 4 stories over 1 story of parking. Now it's 3 stories over 1 story of parking, making it effectively 4 stories, which is the same as this. And it's a larger project. This is a smaller corner section too, so it tapers down much quicker than the Station Ave
The
project.
first story over there's parking.
Here, the whole bottom floor.
Right, so think of that as the first floor, and then there's 3 residential units above.
Right.
That's 4 stories.
There's 3 above the parking.
3 stories above the first floor of parking.
Right.
That's 4 stories. This happens to be...
Right, but when they wanted to build,
Correct.
they were looking for that top floor, and they had to take that floor off.
Because it would have been 5 stories.
Or somewhere in there, but they still had to take the floor out.
Right. To keep it at 4 stories. No, it was not.
I don't think we would, 5 stories here would not fly. We would have said the same thing to an additional story. So this is consistent with 4 stories here with the train track.
Okay.
I think, and I don't know what the plans were. I think the difference probably between the station and this is the station probably has 8-foot heights in their apartments.
I really don't know.
So-
I'm only going by what they said at the
Right,
time, they had to
so-
take the top floor out.
So you would have 10 feet for the parking garage, and then 3 stories at 8 feet, which would be, is that still right?
Yeah.
That gets you to about 40, yeah, that gets you to about the 43 feet. But they had to take off the top story, because it was going to be 5 stories tall. If you go down there, there's 3 apartment units above the parking.
In the front of the complex.
And the parking's on the first floor, right.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Alex Quintanilla. I live on 24 Bonner Place. I've been in Waldwick for like 14 years now. I've recruited my brothers up here to come and live up here, and it's been amazing up here, and I'm super happy for this new project. Especially coming from Bonner Place, I know that Zizzetti used to be what it used to look like, and then what it looks like now. The walkability and the aesthetics is phenomenal. Our kids love riding their bikes through there. So having something like this, I'm 100% in agreement with it. And I thank you for your hard work for the community members. I think that's something that needs to be said. Thank you for this, and hopefully everything goes as planned. Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is John Murphy. I live at 10 Dana Drive in Waldwick. My wife and I have been here about 50 years, our second house, and we raised our kids here. I drive up and down the streets here every day. I had breakfast at Matthews, I had dinner at Andreas, I went to the hardware store, and I bought 2 trays of cookies today at Reinhold's to bring to the Wyckoff Y. I go to him, get my 5 cars serviced, I drive up and down the street, and everything I heard today that you guys talked about, and the people out here talked about, they love the town. You guys are commended for the service you provided to town. And I came to the conclusion, I wasn't planning to be here tonight. I was going to go home and watch the FBI stuff. But this is like an FBI story, because I'd never been in this room before in my life. I pay my taxes. So if you guys can have this beautiful building, I think the town can have that beautiful building. And I think people like him and everybody else in this town will benefit. I'm an old guy. 3 Cape Cods would do fine on that piece of property. But it's time for change. The town needs it. I love this place. So let's take a shot and just do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Motion to close public? Motion by Councilman Ritchie, second by Councilwoman Saracola. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Council comments and... Or a comment? Or a motion?
Or a motion.
Yeah.
Motion to vote?
We get the ordinance, so to be a motion to approve the ordinance.
So it's a motion to approve ordinance 2024-33, an ordinance of the Borough of Waldeck adopting Harrison Avenue redevelopment plan pursuant to the local redevelopment housing law NJSA 48:12A-1 et sec for a property located at 37 to 49 Harrison Avenue and 13 West Prospect Street as identified as block 107 lots 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Need a motion.
Motion by Councilman Ritchie, seconded by Councilwoman Saracola. Roll call, please.
I'm not used to this. Mr. Brennick?
Thank you. What I'm going to do right now, I hope, is an exercise in good government. I also believe in redevelopment, and I believe that Waldeck needs it. Quite frankly, I'm not sold on this. I'm not sold on the size of the building, what we're going to try to contain within the size, within the constraints of the building. However, when I came here tonight, after examining the letter from the planning board, as well as other documents, I felt it was in the best interest of the town, you people, that I would vote no for this. I still believe in development, and I believe in the future of Waldeck. I personally don't believe that this is the right fit for us. However, I'm sitting up here because you people voted me in here. That's why I wanted to hear the comments from you folks. Well, I think I'm one person. You people are Waldeck. So when I heard that there's nothing here but positive comments, I'm going to do what the residents of the borough of Waldeck want me to do, and I'm going to vote yes.
Ms. Saracola? Yes. Mr. Martinello?
That was very inspiring, Amy. I'd just like to add a couple comments. I know I said a lot tonight, but first of all, I love this town and the community that we've created here. My wife was also born and raised in Waldeck, and we raised our children in this town. My boys have gone through Waldeck school system, and I participated in multiple organizations within the town. I want nothing more than to preserve the heart of what Waldeck is and to help it evolve for future generations. I can assure you that nothing about this decision I take lightly, and I think there is much we can accomplish over the next several years to solidify the financial strength, the environmental impacts, and the aesthetics of our town. To me, this is a great opportunity to start the ball rolling and a first step in a successful revitalization project. So I vote yes.
Mr. Raimondo?
Based on the feedback from the residents in town,
Prunick stated. If the residents want this, then I vote in the affirmative.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yeah, well said by everyone, and thank you everyone for coming very much. I vote yes.
Mrs. Weber?
I came here tonight not really sure to which way this would go, and I really wanted to hear from the public. And I'm thrilled that you guys came out and that you guys voiced your opinion. I love this town. I grew up in town. My father grew up in town. I moved back here to raise my kids, and I want to do what's best for the town. And like Andy said, you guys voted for us, and you put your trust in our hands. And I'm thrilled that you guys came and voiced your opinion, and with that being said, I'm voting yes.
Ordinance passes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a happy holiday.
You too.
Look forward to getting this thing started. Take care.
Yes. Should have quick. That's my bedtime. I think it'll be.
Okay. Anybody have unfinished business?
Everybody, please, we still have a little bit of business. Thanks.
Anybody have any unfinished business on the council? Any new business from the council? Nope. Public's comments. Anybody want to comment? Nope. Do I have a motion to go into close? Motion by Mike, second by Katie. All those in favor? All those opposed? There'll be no decision when we come out.